With the recent surge of Muay Boran videos popping up all over YouTube, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about my methodology when it comes to Muay Boran.
You gotta take your time. Don't go so fast. Walk when you punch.
I've been teaching Muay Boran for quite some time now, and since that time, there hasn't really been much information provided on YouTube or tutorials and such. Until lately, there's been somewhat of a tiny surge, if you will, on lessons, and I think it's important so that the audience will know if what they're learning is legit or authentic, or it's just a bunch of information that someone else took from someone else's website or YouTube channel and stuff like that. And so it's important to sort of provide my take on all this. One of the earliest known Muay Boran institutions was established here at Samakong Mountain. And these types of institutions were responsible for educating the royal family when it comes to fighting skills, weaponry, horse riding, elephant riding, and even literature. And there are many schools located within different kingdoms from different provinces which existed in the region of Siam prior to its unification. While each institution from different regions and from different kingdoms has their own distinct Muay Boran style, they all share a common methodology when it comes to training. And one of the commonalities has to do with building a very strong foundation, meaning spending a lot of time working on stance and footwork prior to even getting into the actual techniques. And this is why it takes years to just build this foundation from which you can apply these techniques with more accuracy and more effectiveness. The other commonality has to do with in-person learning with a teacher or teachers who can teach you and provide instant feedback in person. Nowadays, you can just go to YouTube, watch a video, learn the techniques without even having to spend all the time working on basics, foundation, and so on. So you just sort of cut to the chase, but yet at the same time, what you give up is the time spent really building that foundation, as well as having the personal feedback from a knowledgeable teacher. These are the methodologies that are in common within all these different institutions when it comes to teaching Muay Boran. More of a circular motion. Also, there's also exaggerated movement when you throw the uppercut. And so this is why I recommend that if you do learn from someone, even if it is online, that you do have a teacher that is knowledgeable, that has paid their dues through all the years of training, building their foundation, working their way up, and also having that training from other teachers who they've learned from in person, not from reading books, not from watching videos, which is again okay if you're just learning it from someone knowledgeable. You could tell when someone really knows how to do Muay Boran techniques. You could see it in their form and their execution. You could see the consistency every time they do techniques over and over again. And you could feel it if you touch hands with someone who has been training Muay Boran for many, many years. You can tell that their techniques are effective. And this is something that can only be done through years of diligent training. This is really our methodology, and this is really how we do things in terms of how we pass on this knowledge. Well, let's talk about the lessons that we post up on our YouTube channel. And we really consider them as mini lessons because initially the reason why we posted these lessons, aside from introducing them to the world, is that it makes it easier for our students to review the lessons that we are working on in person. If we're looking at technique number 1 or 2, you can review that online, and then we're going to work on it in person, spend the next few weeks getting the gist of it, working it with our foundation, trial and error, different scenarios, and everything else in between as far as making those techniques part of your Muay Boran skill set. And that's really what those lessons are for. Adding drills, whether it's two-man drills, so on, and obviously and sparring as well, and input from us to help them have a correct form, correct angles and execution, and so on. And so there are other factors involved in just watching the short YouTube video that we post. And that's how we teach our lessons. So let's say he throws a jab. I gotta get out of the way. And all I have to do is throw this elbow and knee. Okay, right here. Boom. So as far as our online learning is concerned, for those of you who don't have the opportunity to learn from us in person, this is a way for you to gain exposure to authentic Muay Boran techniques that you otherwise wouldn't really be exposed to. Yes, I know there's a few YouTube channels out there that are now posting Muay Boran techniques, and a lot of these channels came about just within the past year or so, basically just copying other sources online, perhaps even copying our lessons. As far as we're concerned, because we have been teaching for several years now in person, and then we've just decided to post our techniques online about 4-5 years ago. And so we want to educate the public as to how to use these techniques in terms of how you can add it to your game. For those of you who already have a background in, say, Muay Thai or any other martial art, you can add these techniques. But if you really want to get into a deeper understanding of Muay Boran, then this is why I explained earlier that there are other things that need to be learned as far as putting everything together, such as the basics, fundamentals, specific drills, and transitions, and everything else involved in really calling this Muay Boran system. Because if you're just adding these techniques to whatever it is you're doing, then obviously it's still really not Muay Boran, right? It's Muay Boran techniques you're learning, but you're adding it to a different foundation, whether it's Muay Thai or a different martial arts system. That's why we're posting this episode, to sort of explain to you what the lessons are for, and also how you can use these lessons to better your game or to perhaps broaden your understanding of Muay Boran in general. That's really the purpose of having these lessons that we post. Number one, to expose it to the world, to educate the public, to share our knowledge. And number two is also to give our students a reference of which technique we're going to be working on, and then make it accessible for them to review it over and over again. But they are not full lessons, as I mentioned before, because for that to happen, then we would have to also talk about foundations and how it's interconnected with all the other exercises, drills, just everything that we do in terms of Muay Boran as a full curriculum. As time goes by, I'll start posting more fundamentals and basics breakdown and so on. The reality of it is always better to learn firsthand in person with a knowledgeable teacher who learned from the source. So if it's possible to do that, then do so. If not, at least go to channels that are authentic, that have really learned from the source. And we are one of those channels that know our stuff, and we have been teaching for many, many years. And so be confident that what we give you is not something that we borrowed from someone else's site or channel. It's something that we learned firsthand in person. And so that's really the message here.